Hello there everyone and welcome back to Push Square. Today I have Robert Ramsey's review of Sandland, which I've adapted into a video for your viewing pleasure. So let's see if this one is worth picking up in our Sandland PS5 review. Originally published all the way back in 2000 as a standalone manga, it's strange but not unwelcome to see Sandland revived as both an anime series and a video game almost a quarter of a century later. Authored by the late and legendary Akira Toriyama, Sandland is an incredibly charming story about a post-apocalyptic world where a cocky demon prince is roped into helping out what's left of humanity. Given that the manga consists of just a single volume, it's no surprise to see that the anime greatly expands upon the source material, and the game, also just called Sandland, follows that exact same path. At its core, this is a retelling of the recently released anime's tale, but thanks to an open world setting, the kingdom of Sandland itself has never felt so grounded, and its characters have never been given so much room to breathe. You play as the aforementioned demon prince Beelzebub, as he forfeits the isolation of his fellow fiends in favour of travelling the desert with a grizzled army veteran named Rao. The old man needs help, powerful help, in trying to restore water to Sandland, and so the adventure begins. The game's storytelling is well done, sporting some great cutscenes and impressive direction, which really capture the spirit of Sandland as a property. Just from the prologue alone, it's abundantly clear that this isn't just some quick cash-in. A lot of effort has been funneled into making a faithful adaptation, both in terms of presentation and tone. But at the same time, the game does such a good job of providing a complete experience that you don't need to be familiar with the original work at all in order to enjoy it. And in that sense, Sandland is something of a benchmark for licensed manga and anime titles. Gameplay is predominantly explorative as Beelzebub and his ragtag companions venture from settlement to settlement in search of the so-called legendary spring. The map is vast and barren by design, and so a lot of hours will be spent blasting across the sands aboard one of your custom vehicles. From your trusty tank and bipedal combat mech to your speedy motorbike and cozy four-seater, Sandland places a heavy emphasis on collecting and building bots so that you can better traverse its blistered environments. To start with, you only have access to a select few machines with obvious implementation. Your tank, for example, is your go-to option for vehicular combat, since it's equipped with a cannon and heavy armour, but you'll also want a bike or a buggy for more efficient travel. However, as you progress through the main questline, you'll gradually unlock more specialised mechs alongside a wide range of customizations that let you tweak your style of play. There's actually a surprising degree of depth to Sandland's mechanical endeavours as you loot, craft and upgrade parts to stay one step ahead of your enemies. Things do get a little bit grindy in the game's latter half, especially if you want to take down the optional bosses, but generally speaking, progression feels smooth and largely rewarding. Getting your hands on a cool new mech or even just a tank turret that rockets your attack stats is quite exciting. Naturally, all of these upgrades and adjustments feed into the title's action combat. While Beelzebub himself is basically superhuman, able to kick overgrown wildlife into submission and shrug gunfire off like it's nothing, he'll still struggle against hulking robots and flying foes. Fortunately, you can carry up to 5 mechs with you at any time and swap between them, even in battle through a radial menu. Combat therefore is as much about choosing the right look for the job as it is actually dodging attacks and retaliating. The fundamentals of fighting are fairly basic. Enemy attacks are telegraphed through obvious animations and visual cues, and more often than not, vehicular victories lie in your ability to keep moving, whilst also making sure that your bullets, rockets and laser beams are on target. If you're versed in action games, it'll seem rather easy, even on the hard difficulty, but it's your assortment of gun-toting toys that keep combat interesting. The fact that you're able to approach battles on foot, driving a tank or piloting a mech, means that there's an enjoyable amount of player agency to go around. It's just a fun system to mess about with. Gunning down hapless creatures so that you can add yet more materials to your inventory is mindlessly entertaining and all, but the game's action really shines during the core campaign. There are some really engaging encounters dotted throughout, many of of which are spiced with unique mechanics. In fact, it's the more prolonged battles that strike a chord. Having to crunch through waves of enemy tanks is always a joy, and it's these more chaotic, challenging skirmishes that have us wishing the game would let loose just a little more often. Indeed, the title does stumble now and then with very specific gameplay elements that feel half-arsed. Stealth is a perfect example. It's only ever used a few times throughout the entire game, thankfully, but being forced to sneak past enemies that Beelzebub could easily pummel into the ground feels like the development team had to tick a box. Still, across its 40-hour or so runtime, it's hard not to appreciate how complete Sandland is, especially when compared to most anime tie-ins. We wouldn't necessarily call it ambitious, many of the mechanics are ultimately tried and tested, but it's rock solid across the board, and there's a lot of meat to those bones. For instance, outside of the central plot, there are loads of fully voiced side quests that you can undertake, and there's an even broader objective that involves rebuilding and repopulating a near abandoned town named Spinal. The location acts as a hub for your journey, and watching it evolve is one of the most pleasing parts of the game. Speaking of pleasing, Sandland looks lovely. Toriyama's unmistakable art style goes a long way. The characters and mech designs are superb, and it forms the basis of the game's striking visuals. It also runs flawlessly on the PS5, maintaining 60 frames per second regardless of how busy things get, and the load times are instantaneous. Broken down into individual pieces, Sandland doesn't do anything particularly amazing, but when taken as a whole, this is one of the best anime games that we've played in a long time. It's got plenty of great story moments, its open world structure is Moorish, and combat is satisfyingly solid. This is a robust and lovingly crafted adventure that charms from start to finish. Thank you for watching our Sandland review. Let us know down in the comments whether you plan to pick this one up when it launches on PlayStation. And when you're down there, remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation video content. Anyway, until next time, I've been Aiden, and this has been Push Square.